And this was, if you remember, the big controversy about all of the migrants who came into Haiti, 20,000 immigrants, Haitian migrants in a town of 40,000 people. So you blink your eyes in Springfield, Ohio, and you wake up and literally a third of the population of your town is now Haitian immigrants.
And eating cats and dogs.
Eating cats and dogs.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Dollemore Daily. I'm your guest host, Boston Brian, host of Blonde Politics, and filling in for Jesse while he makes his way back to the States. And I just have to admit, ladies and gentlemen, I just didn't see ourselves covering this ground again. I thought we had pretty much disproven this one about as much as we needed to in order to embarrass anybody that thought about bringing this talking point up again. But I guess when you're a racist, you're a bigot, when you just don't give a shit who you demean or degrade, you have no soul, you have no shame, you're unable to be embarrassed, and I guess it just doesn't matter what you say or who sees you say it, because again, J.D. Vance leaning heavily into the racism this week. I don't know what's gotten into him, but I got a few clips from J.D., from different parts of this week where he is just going all out, talking about and using racist dog whistles, basically talking about immigration as if it is a stain on this country and not as if it is the single thing that we can point to that resembles the backbone of this country, something that we always talk about. This country was built off of the backs of immigrants, the backs of immigrant labor. I mean, how many of our family members, how many of our ancestors walked their asses through Ellis Island to look for a better life, to look for freedom, to experience the new world? And J.D. Vance, again, in several moments this week, doing everything he can to, again, throw out these racist dog whistles of assimilation and common community. He was on with the Pod Force One podcast with Miranda. Don't know her name, doesn't really matter, not important. Anyway, J.D. Vance uses a completely made-up story that he has absolutely no evidence to back up whatsoever, and uses a fake immigrant family giving tacit permission to Americans to look at your neighbors, and if you don't like the way they speak, if you don't like the way they look, and if they don't have enough in common with you, then that gives you the right to, enact some sort of eviction yourself, or you should enact some sort of laws that give people the permission to kick out neighbors that they don't agree with or don't like. They don't like the way they look or smell or whatever the hell it may be. Here's J.D. Vance in this Pod Force One podcast, again, giving tacit permission to Americans to say, you know what, I don't like my neighbors because they don't look like me.
Actually evicted from the house because there are people who are going to pay more for rent. And then what happens is 20 people move into a 3-bedroom house, 20 people from a totally different culture, totally different ways of interacting. Again, we can respect their dignity while also being angry at the Biden administration for letting that situation happen and recognizing that their next door neighbors are going to say, well, wait a second, what is going on here? I don't know these people. They don't speak the same language that I do. And because there are 20 in the house next door, it's a little bit rowdier than it was when there was just a family of 4, a family of 5. It is totally reasonable and acceptable for American citizens to look at their next door neighbors and say, I want to live next to people who I have something in common with. I don't want to live next to 4 families of strangers.
It is totally reasonable and acceptable for the American people to look at their neighbor and say, I want to live next to somebody that has something in common with me. Now, listen, I'll even give him the benefit of the doubt, which I shouldn't do ever. And again, I'm probably going to live to regret it doing this time. But if you want to say that within the 4 walls, within the sanctity of your own home, then so be it. You can say that. You can hate your neighbors. You can dislike them for whatever reason you want. And even if you want to be a dickhead, if you want to be an asshole and say it in public, then that is your prerogative to do so. It is a free country. You have the right to say that. What you don't have the right to do is intimidate, harass, or in any way try to evict these people within your own terms, with your own hands, using your own force. That's what you don't have the right to do. You don't have the right to make these people's lives a living hell so they want to move out so that you can hopefully get somebody in there that's a nice white Christian family like there was before the ugly, scary brown people came into your town, right? But of course, JD's racism for the week didn't end there. Oh no, he was just getting started. Apparently, JD spoke at another Turning Point cult convention this week where he was actually asked a set of really good questions by one of the audience members. I have the questions here, and then I'll play you JD's response. Unfortunately, JD spoke for about 17 and a half hours in the response, so I'll try to break it up as much as possible, or at least just kind of feed you the important parts of it. But this is the set of questions I was asked of JD Vance at this Turning Point Cult Convention. The question goes, when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You gave us a path, and now tell us we don't belong here. Why do you have to be a Christian to be an American? Which is a very good set of questions, one that you probably wouldn't expect to hear at one of these cult conventions that are still being held in Charlie Kirk's memory and Charlie Kirk's honor. But it's definitely the racist, bigoted, trope-filled, dog whistle-filled response from J.D. Vance when he talks about things like assimilation, when he talks about things like the 1920s, when he talks about things like common community. These are all, dog whistles to these Christian nationalists to basically make sure that people, if they're not white, act as white or look as white as possible. And if it, at all possible, we make sure there are no brown people, there are no others in our community, and we keep it as pure as possible, which I think kind of sounds like, an Aryan community that I once was aware of in the 30s and 40s, somewhere in Germany, I think it was. But again, here's JD Vance answering that question, to the worst of his ability. Check it out.
If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in, it is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s, the United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country.
Yeah, you know what else we had in the 20s, you ignorant prick? We had Jim Crow segregation. We had disenfranchised black voters. We had women still not being able to vote, especially black women not being able to vote. We had literacy tests. We had poll taxes. Are you sure? You're really sure you want to go down this route? Sure you want to use the 20s as your prime example as to what we need to go back to in terms of the way of life in the American system?
And what happened over those 40 years? The many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture.
And by assimilate, he really means, become more white. Don't speak your native tongue. Don't dress like you did where you came from, that type of thing. And I certainly don't recall learning in the history books about this, requirement of assimilation, which is exactly why most of the people started living with their own. The Italians moved into the Italian neighborhoods, the Irish moved into the Irish neighborhoods, and so on and so forth. Again, keeping their own native tongue, keeping their native culture going, keeping their foods, bringing their foods to our culture. Why do you think we have so many goddamn different foods from other places? You think the hamburger was created in fucking the United States? Does Hamburg, Germany ring a bell to you? I mean, we could go through this all day of people that think that the foods in this country, the foods that are known to Americans, were actually created here. No, they were brought to this country just like the different ideas, just like the different beliefs from people from all over the world. And that's what makes America, America.
So when I see a lot of left-wing people who theoretically support organized labor saying we need to flood the country with a limitless number of immigrants, they're unwilling to set any limitations on it. My response to that is you are destroying the very social trust on which American freedom and prosperity was built. And that is really important to me. So the honest answer to your question, what is the exact number of immigrants America should accept in the future? Right now, the answer is far less than we've been accepting. We have got to become a common community again, and you can't do that when you have such high numbers of immigration.
I'm just really curious how common he wants our community to be. I mean, does he want us kind of like all wearing the same white sheets with, I don't know, maybe the same pointed white hat, dancing around, I don't know, the same burning cross, possibly like that close in community? Just again, more racist dog whistles, just racist tropes out loud in your face at these Turning Point cult conventions on podcasts. He doesn't care because he feels like they have the world by the balls right now. Donald Trump's in charge and nobody can tell him otherwise. So JD Vance feels like he has that same power in his hands. He has the same ability to speak these bigoted and racist terms and comments all over the place without the fear of backlash. And that's just not going to fly with me. That's just not going to happen under my watch. So I really do appreciate you guys for sticking with me on this one, dealing with JD's bullshit. Thank you so much for all your patience. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your kind comments. Thank you for liking these videos that we've been doing. I really do appreciate it. And again, thank you. A big thank you to Jesse for allowing me to step in while he travels home. It's a big responsibility and I don't take it lightly. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And I very much thank you guys for your time and your energy. Like I always say, get out, stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive. Make sure you find your nearest protest, find your nearest rally, but make sure you keep your head on a swivel out there because, you know, make sure you stay safe. But I'll catch you next time on the next video. I really do appreciate it. Again, I'm Boston Brian. Head over to my channel. I do a great live stream a couple times a week called Blunt Politics. I would very much appreciate if you like what you're hearing here. If you like what you're seeing here, give me a shot over there. Maybe give me a like on a video, subscribe to the channel. It would be very much appreciated. Again, I'm Boston Brian. Please make sure you're kicking ass and I'll see you on the next one. Let's go.